So another survey question I received was, how can I create a safe environment for my family during a natural disaster? So it's a very general question, but here's what I say to that. So people who live in a natural disaster prone areas should at the very least be familiar with signs and indications of these disasters and how to react to them, right? So even minor natural disasters can actually have devastating effects. So these are not to be taken lightly. And there are, for instance, for hurricanes and tornadoes, alert systems that you can have on your phone and apps, which I highly recommend. When it comes to earthquakes, the predict for those are, of course, very hard to do. So then the preparation is more dire. But that's not to take away that the other natural disasters need to be prepared for as well. So the best sort of safe environment is to be prepared for before these strike, and that includes earthquakes. So make sure that you have the necessary supplies for you and your family. And what I say the most important part is fresh water, right? Because your water main might be broken and you might not have access to drinking water or water for cooking and so forth. So fresh water. Second, I would say medical supplies, because there's a likelihood of potentially getting hurt from debris or from other elements. So medical supplies are important. Fire prevention equipment is also important. You know, you can have gas lines or other things that can sort of start fires. So fire prevention equipment like fire extinguishers are important. Second, and after that, I would go to food and means to cook it, right? So that could mean like portable propane and other fire starting things you can actually make a fire and cook food and so forth. Flashlight, because it could happen during the nighttime and you need to be able to see, and you might not have electricity. So flashlights, one flashlight per member of the family is what I recommend. After that, I would make sure you have hard-soled shoes and fresh clothing. If you live in a warm climate, um, those clothing can be fairly simple. But if you live in like in cold climates, then cold weather equipment like jackets and sweaters and so forth is more important to stay warm in those situations. And lastly, tools to mend or create, meaning if something is broken, when it comes to even creating fire pits and stuff like that, and to have tools to mend things that are broken or create things for shelters and so forth. These are just like a few items, but the list can be quite extensive depending on your budget and your means. But the main thing is that you cannot prevent a natural disaster from happening. So what you really are preparing for is the aftermath. How can you create a safe environment when the infrastructure is temporarily not functioning? And that means that you might not be able to go out and get food. You might not be able to go out and get gas from a gas station. And you might not have electricity for an extended period of time. You might not have water supplies for an extended period of time. So to have these supplies to last you a few days to a few weeks. And the extent of this is depending on your budget and your means to do so. The other important part is to drill scenarios with your family, right? Don't just buy a bunch of supplies and then expect to know what to do. So drill this with your family on these scenarios. What would you do if something like this happens? And then also ensure that your emergency supplies are up to date and in order.